Good day. Today is Tuesday, November 8th, 2011, and as I said in the first video, I was going over some games of Grandmaster Lubomir Ftacnik on the Chess Games website, and I happened to run across another game that had been the game of the day, Saturday, June 11th, 2011, and it was a game between Polugaevsky and Lubomir Ftacnik, and it was from the Lucerne Olympiad. Soviet Union versus Czechoslovakia from round 5, and this was 1982. And this game was featured as the problem of the day on the Chess Games website. And I just wanted to do a video on this game. I've already done part 1, and now we're going to go ahead and pick this game up and begin part 2. And just quickly, I want to run through the game again. We went through the game up to move 22 in some detail in part 1, but I just want to quickly run through the game and get to the critical position. If you want to see the analysis of the game prior to move 22, please watch the first part of the video, part 1 of this two-part series. Going back to the game, knight f3, knight f6, to c4, c5. White plays knight c3, e6. It started off as a ready, but basically we've now transposed into a queen's gambit or even an English type of position. And both players are just basically playing simple development moves. White plays g3, and that greatly changes the nature of the game. If you wanted to play something like e3 and pushes king pawn and play e3 and d4 here, that would be a queen's gambit type of game there. But anyway, white plays g3, black plays b6, bishop g2, bishop b7. White plays 6 castles, black plays bishop e7, d4, c takes d4, queen takes d4. A little bit of a surprising capture. I've already covered that in some detail. That's a favorite move of Polugaevsky. He likes to play that type of capture in these type of positions. I can show you many games in the database where he's done this. So apparently this was a favorite recapture of his in these types of positions, these English type Marazzi bind type of positions. And it maintains a lot of attention. Sometimes you have to give up a tempo or two, but the idea is basically to avoid exchanges, because if white would have recaptured with his knight here, then the bishops would have been exchanged on the long diagonal. But anyway, Polugaevsky plays queen takes d4, black plays 8 d6, 9 rook d1, a6, 10 b3, knight bd7, e4, queen b8, bishop b2, black castles, white plays knight d2, black plays rook d8. That move was a theoretical novelty in the first move. White played a4 here. I didn't like that move. Queen e3 was the choice of a lot of engines, especially Deep Shredder. I did an overnight analysis from this position here, and the Shredder engine, which is fairly powerful. Deep Shredder it's not the latest version. It's like 2 versions back. But anyway, it picked queen e3 there. It's an extremely strong program. Would probably beat just about any human player alive running on the average PC. But anyway, white played a4 there. That was somewhat weakening his king side, but it does have the advantage of clamping down on the b5 square and preventing black from breaking free with b5. Black plays queen c7, white played queen e3, rac8. Now already the computers are showing that black has equalized, even though he has a little less space than his opponent. Black's mobilized all of his pieces here and seems to be doing well. White goes queen e2, black plays knight e5. You could almost give that move an exclam because it's easily the most active move. White's next move is not correct. White should have played 17 f4 here. Instead, he played h3, and Ftacnik gives that a question mark. I just gave that a dubious. Black plays h5, exclam. Ftacnik himself gave that move an exclam. It's basically the idea is to play h4, h5 here and tear down, chip away at the white king side. White goes ahead and plays f4, knight g6. White plays knight f3. Black plays d5. He's breaking in the center. This helps break up white's clamp there on d5. White played c takes d5. As I already covered in part 1, e takes d5 was probably the slightly better move. Black plays h4, exclam. That's a very good move. Ftacnik actually gave that 2 exclamation points in his analysis of this game in the informant. But I gave that a single exclam. It's a nice move. Very thematic, chipping away at white's kingside pawn structure. Knight takes h4. Knight takes h4. 22, g takes h4. Queen takes f4. And now we pick up the game where we had left off in the first part, and that's with queen takes f4, and we're going to basically picking up the game, really beginning our analysis here with that move. And here white played d takes e6. That was actually a very bad move. Generally speaking, there's a general rule that the defender should, and white right now, even though the white is usually the attacker, now black has turned the tables and he's actually on the aggression. He's on the aggressive part of the board here. So white's really the one who's trying to defend his position. And when you are the defender, you should generally avoid opening lines. That's just a general rule of thumb, but I would say that's true in at least 75% of the time. White should avoid opening up the position in this type of position when he's basically, black's position. Black's about just to rip things wide open, and that's white's actually helping black by opening up the game. But anyway, white plays d takes e6 there, and that's just helping black. The correct move there for white would have been just to play a5, b5, and go on from there. And Fritz 12 rates that position as just slightly better for black, but it's by no means a very clear win for black. I analyzed it very deeply, and I never really found a clear win for black. So d takes e6 was definitely an inferior choice, and maybe even an error, because again, white's opening up the game. It was really strange that Ftacnik in his annotations in the informant didn't really comment on that move at all. He gave the move d23, d takes e6, no kind of annotation or no kind of appellation at all there. He simply, just gave it plain. But to me, that was, and the computers show a definite downturn in their evaluations, and that's what I base my inferior mark there on, and also the fact that white's violating the general rule of thumb that the defender should not open the position up if he can help it. But anyway, black plays f takes e6, and white's next move is really bad. I mean, it's maybe even the losing move here. White had to play rook takes d8, and I can just quickly show you this variation. What white should do here is rook takes d8, rook takes d8, rook f1, queen h4. And black's probably winning there simply because he's up material, but and his position's so much better. Well, actually, now I think things have equalized. Right now, it's 4 pawns versus 4, but the computer still considers black to be much better in that position. So that was white's correct line of play. Here, white played e5, and that was just extremely bad because he's opening up the position. Had to have been based on some kind of oversight or miscalculation by white. And also, Ftacnik, in his annotations in the informant, also gave the move 24 e5 a question mark as well. So anyway, white plays 24 e5, and that move was a question mark. And black plays bishop c5 check. Of course, white has to put his king in the corner. That's the only really good move there, other than playing giveaway or giving away a rook or sticking the queen in the way. Really, that's like box, or the only really decent move for white. And now the position, I even give you a chance if you want to. You could pause this video and take several moments and try to say, figure out here what move would you play as black. And this was actually the featured position with black to move on the Chess Games website. It was the problem of the day back in June 11th, I believe it was, 2011, on a Saturday. This was the featured problem of the day. We call it the POTD for short, but it's the problem that's on the very front page of the Chess Games website. That's www.chessgames.com. And it's a very good website. I love to go there every day and solve the problem. It helps keep you tactically sharp. But anyway, white had to play the only move he could play there. He played king h1. And by now you should have had a chance to at least look at the position. You could pause again, you can always pause the video and take a couple of moments and study the position and try to figure exactly what you would do there. Black played the extremely brilliant knight h5. And that was just I give that an exclam. Ftacnik gave that 2 exclams. And but I gave it just 1, but because it's a rather obvious move. We have this really big forking square here, and some of the moves there that follow up this move are very brilliant, and Ftacnik did not praise them at all, and I will talk about that just a little bit here in a minute. But anyway, black played 25 knight h5 exclam, which is a very outstanding, even sublime move, and several annotators gave that 2 exclamation points. But anyway, white plays queen takes, h5. He has to do that because back in this position, you can very easily see that the black knight is threatening to dive into the g3 square. And once the knight arrived on that square, then both the queen and the king would have been forked, and that would have been very bad for white. Of course, he couldn't allow his queen to be forked there, and he really didn't have any moves. I mean, it's either do that or just perish. I mean, white doesn't have a good move there for his queen. For example, Let's just for a second here, just for grins and giggles, we'll turn on Fritz here and explore, like, let's say, what if the white queen goes to C2 here? Well, actually, I've already have that variation analyzed here. Queen C2, black plays knight G3 check, king H2, knight F1 discover check, king there, and queen there mate. So it's, and by the way, knight F1 was a double check in that position. So the king had to go to H1. It was like the only legal move, and the queen goes to H2 mate. That's just one example of what could have happened to white if he hadn't, took the knight on H5. Another way for white to lose his queen was to play bishop takes B7 there. He could have played bishop takes B7. Black would have played knight G3 check. Of course, this is just winning the king. King G2, knight takes E2, knight takes E2. This hits the queen. Queen F2 check. King H1, queen takes E2. And of course, you can use a chess engine to confirm that black is winning here, but it really isn't necessary. I mean, black's just up a ton of material. He's got a queen for a bishop, so that's pretty much an easy win for black. You don't have to be a grandmaster to be able to win that position. But anyway, back here when black played knight H5 exclam, poor Polugaevsky, he had no choice but to take the queen here at this point. And now black plays the move queen G3, and this was just a very sublime move here. This is a very, very lovely move. That's just an excellent move there for black. Apologize there. I had to turn the chess engine off. It was just taking up too much resources, and also was somewhat of a distraction. But anyway, black just played queen G3 there. The queen dives into that G3 square, and that's a very strong move for black. Black basically now is threatening several mates in one. Queen takes H3, queen takes G2, also queen takes here, and if the bishop takes the bishop, queen takes H3 mate. So there's all different ways for white to lose from here. White has to block the long diagonal. If he doesn't block the long diagonal, he'll simply lose. He plays knight D5. When I first saw that, I was a little puzzled by that, but after analyzing it, for just a few minutes, it became obvious that that was pretty much forced for white. White has to play that blocking move, knight D5, to block the long diagonal. If he doesn't do that, several different ways that he can lose there. Rather than 27 knight D5, is he can go rook G1, but white just plays queen H3 mate. He can play bishop takes B7 there, 27 bishop takes B7, but queen takes H3 is mate. White can try go queen G4. This looks like a save for white because it guards both H3 and it seems like black can no longer play queen takes bishop on G2 because the queen can come back and take backwards, moving back. But now black just simply plays bishop takes G2, and that's also a mate because the bishop cuts off the dark square diagonal there, especially the G1 square, and the queen cuts off the H2 square. And finally, rook takes D8, rook takes T8, rook G1, just queen 8. Then, rather, let me back that up here. Rook takes D8, rook takes D8, rook G1, and now just queen takes H3 is also a mate. Now, pausing again for just a second or two, you have to decide what move would you play here. And black plays rook takes D5. I give that a double exclam because it seemed like the natural move with the recapture with the bishop. And here white can give up the exchange, but Ftacnik doesn't rush things. He just simply captures with the rook and basically dares Polugaevsky. Of course, Polugaevsky to take bishop takes would be disastrous for white. In fact, if bishop takes rook, queen takes pawn, we're back to that same mating pattern there. The rook is really off limits. So anyway, black played rook takes D5. That was almost like a double exclam for me. White plays the only move he plays. He finds an interesting resource here, a fairly good resource, as he plays rook F1. And now the game finishes off very brilliantly. Black plays queen takes G2, check, takes, check, and here white resigns. And the reason white resigns is it's its forced mate from there. And the rest of the mate runs rook D2 check, king G3, rook G2 check, king F4 check. That's the only legal move. It's a giveaway, but it's the only legal move. And rook takes F7 as a checkmate. And that concludes my coverage of this game. I would like to thank you for watching my video. Again, if you wanted to contact me, my address is on my website. You could get a copy of this analysis, and also I'd throw in a copy of the informant Ftacnik's own analysis in the informant, which is fairly good. I mean, fairly in depth. Ftacnik did this in 1982, shortly after this game was played. Obviously, he didn't have a chance to cover that game. Thank you.